If you're still buying US stocks or bonds, or just sitting on cash like a dragon guarding its hoard, you might be in for a rude awakening after 2025. Your wealth could face one of two fates: a slow and painful shrinkage, like a wool sweater in a hot wash, or a dramatic implosion, like dropping your phone on concrete. Why? Well, there's talk that Donald Trump and Elon Musk might be trying to pull the plug on the Federal Reserve. Publicly, they're calling it government reform, but it could be their version of flipping the monopoly board and declaring no more rent payments. A quick history lesson: how the US gamed the system. Once upon a time, the US told the rest of the world, "Hey, give us your gold, and we'll give you dollars backed by that gold. You can use dollars for trade, it'll make life simpler." Everyone thought, wow, that's convenient. But then one day, the US said, surprise, no more gold for you. But hey, you can still use our dollars. Isn't that nice? Essentially, they swapped the world's gold for green paper and then locked the vault. From there, the Federal Reserve started printing money like a college student with a new credit card. The more they printed, the less the dollars in everyone's wallets were worth. To make things worse, the US convinced everyone to lend those devalued dollars back to them in exchange for bonds that paid interest. It was like borrowing sugar from your neighbor and then charging them to borrow it back. The "oops, we're out of money" problem. Fast forward to now. The US owes so much money that even paying the interest is becoming tricky. So, what's the solution? There are whispers that Trump and Musk might want to take the most extreme route, shutting down the Federal Reserve altogether. If that happens, the dollar could go the way of Blockbuster, irrelevant and useless. And if the dollar becomes worthless, guess what? The US doesn't have to repay its debts. Clever, huh? It's like burning down the bank to avoid your credit card bill. Meanwhile, some US states are already preparing for a post-dollar world by recognizing gold as legal tender. Yes, gold, shiny rocks. It's as if they're saying, forget Venmo, let's trade like pirates again. And while it sounds old school, it's a sign that even parts of the US don't trust the dollar's future. The Federal Reserve, the boss you can't fire. Here's the kicker: the Federal Reserve isn't even part of the US government. It's a private institution, like a VIP club that prints money and lends it to the government, at interest. This means US taxpayers are essentially working to pay off the Fed's bills. Critics joke that the Fed is like that one roommate who eats all your food but still charges you rent. And the Fed's mysterious owners? Rumor has it they're controlled by ultra-wealthy families who have more money than anyone could count. Imagine Jeff Bezos looking like a budget shopper next to these folks. The US owes so much to the Fed that it's basically like owing your landlord a fortune while living in their basement. Historical fun fact: don't mess with the Fed. Presidents who've tried to challenge the Federal Reserve haven't had great endings. Lincoln wanted to issue greenbacks, Kennedy wanted to tie the dollar to silver. Well, you know how their stories ended. The Fed doesn't take kindly to people rocking the boat. The US borrowing strategy: like a juggler with chainsaws, the US has been borrowing money like someone juggling credit cards to pay off credit cards. Lenders are now saying, we're not giving you a 30-year loan, but we'll consider a payday loan for 3 months, at crazy high interest rates. Even Warren Buffett, the ultimate buy and hold guy, isn't touching long-term US debt. He's sticking to short-term bonds, which is basically the financial equivalent of, I trust you, but only if I can get my money back by next week. The problem? Eventually, those short-term debts come due, and if no one wants to lend more, the US might have to crank up the money printer again. And when that happens, the dollar could become the financial equivalent of monopoly money, fun to look at but not worth much. Trump's wild ideas. Bitcoin and buckets. So, how does Trump plan to fix this mess? One idea is to ditch the dollar entirely and switch to Bitcoin. Yes, Bitcoin, the digital currency that swings in value more than a toddler's mood. It's like trading in your reliable, but beat-up, car for a rocket-powered unicycle, exciting but terrifying. Another plan involves categorizing countries into 3 buckets based on how much they play nice with the US. 1. Green bucket, besties. These are America's ride or die allies, like Japan, the UK, and Canada. 1. Their currencies might strengthen, like getting a free upgrade on your economy flight. 2. Yellow bucket, frenemies. These countries want to play both sides, using the US for trade but not fully committing. 2. Think of them as the flaky friend who only shows up when they need something. 3. Red bucket, enemies. These are the countries that give the US side-eye and refuse to play ball. 3. They'll face tariffs, sanctions, and other economic punches. 3. Their currencies might tank faster than a meme stock after Elon Musk tweets about it. For example, Japan was once in the green bucket and got hit with the Plaza Accord, which forced its currency to skyrocket. This crushed their exports, popped their economic bubble, and turned their real estate market into a cautionary tale. It's like being invited to a fancy dinner, only to find out you're the meal. What this means for you: if your country ends up in the red bucket, its currency could nosedive, making imports ridiculously expensive. Imagine trying to buy an iPhone and realizing it costs as much as a used car. On the other hand, green bucket countries might see their currencies strengthen, so their citizens could enjoy cheaper imports and stronger purchasing power. For investors, this means thinking ahead. Holding assets like gold or currencies from green bucket countries could be a smart hedge against a falling dollar. But don't expect to get rich overnight. This is more about protecting what you have than doubling your money. The takeaway: the US is in a financial pickle, and the solutions on the table range from mildly concerning to downright chaotic. Whether it's dismantling the Fed, switching to Bitcoin, or shaking down other countries for cash, the next few years are going to be a wild ride. So, buckle up, maybe buy some gold, or a treasure chest to store it in. And keep an eye on which bucket your country gets tossed into. Just don't forget, in this game, the rules can, and probably will, change at any moment.